All right, if you'd please look up here, I think what we're going to do is we're going to build all the exceptions first. So we're going to create around a dozen files right now. The good news is each file literally is only going to be about 10 lines long. All right, and some of the code will be written for you. You'll see it as we go right now. So as we've been doing, and again, these are going to be exceptions. So as we've been doing, if you'd please right mouse click on the source folder, choose new, and choose Java class. Same way we've been doing it. Right mouse click on the source folder, choose new, and choose Java class. Now, like I said, if nothing else, maybe I went a little nuts in here, and you'll see that when we start to run these, okay? But I wanted to try to be complete in showing this. So we're now going to write about a dozen of our own exception handlers. All right? So the first one we're going to write, now it is not mandatory that when you write an exception handler, you end it with the word exception, but it's convention. Did you all hear what I said? So the first one we're going to create is called missing first name exception. We could just call it first name exception, etc., but I tried to come up with a name that I thought was reflective of what it is the problem was. So missing, all one word, first name exception. All like one word with a big M, a big F, a big N, and a big E. Okay? Can everybody see that? I can't make that text bigger. Sorry. So missing first name exception. One word. When you get done, just hit the enter key. It'll create it for you. If you still couldn't see it, that's what it was right there. Right? Now, this will be the first time. This is going to allow us to extend a class, not one of our classes, a Java class. Because every time you create an exception, that exception, if you look on the screen here, must extend the exception class. So you must do that for your exceptions. Okay? What you're going to find in just a couple minutes, we're going to do this one, and then guess what? Anybody want to take a wild guess over what the next one's going to be called? Missing last name exception? So it's going to be virtually the same thing. If you want to go in and do some copy and paste, you can, but please be careful. You want to call the right exception at the right time. That said, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to key in each one of these. You do it whatever way you want to. All right? So I come in here and I say this. There's no main, but public missing first name exception, just like this, paren, then in curly braces, super. This is what you are actually sending up to exception that's going to handle it. All right? And all we're going to say here is no, first name provided. It is totally up to us what we put in there. Does that make sense? When you write your own exception handler, what you end up sending up to exception, like I've got no first name provided, that's up to you. All right? And what you're going to see is when we run this tomorrow and we have one of these exceptions, then rather than it saying something like array index out of bounds exception, it's now going to say missing first name exception. Does all that make sense? All right. So that's the first one. I'll write the second one right now. Again, right mouse click on source, choose new, choose Java class. This will be our missing last name exception. It'll look virtually the same as the last one. That's why, like I said, we have to come in here and, as mentioned, extends exception. All right. And just like we did a minute ago, we want to come in here and say public missing last name, not first. Watch your IntelliSense. Missing last name exception, paren, then in curlies, I'm going to put a super, and I'm going to say no last name provided. Now, if you're a fast typist, the next one we're going to do is missing SSN exception, and we're going to put in no social security number provided. So this is two of them. All right, and I'm going to now do the third. Right mouse click again on source, choose new, choose Java class. This one I'm going to call missing SSN exception. Remember, this is just a name. I could call it missing social security number exception, but we talked about this yesterday. I think most people, when they hear SSN, they're smart enough to know that means social security number. All right, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. Oops, not super. You want to make sure that when you provide text in these, you can provide more text than that. Now, don't look up here, but please listen. We don't have this. If we had a product number, and some companies have product numbers that are really weird. They're like 2 letters, 3 digits, 2 more letters, 3 more digits, etc. And if somebody breaks the rules and we're going to make an exception there, you should let them know what they did wrong. Does that make sense? I mean, here we just said no social security number provided. Since it's a string, you can technically provide the social security number with or without dashes. All right, if we were going to go that far with this program, we could check, and if there were no dashes, we could add them. It wouldn't be that hard to do. We just would have to, bring in one of the string methods to do that. That wouldn't be that tough. All right, now, also, would you agree? I'm asking you this question. Would you agree? We have how many types of employees? 4. We've got hourly employees, we have commission employees, we have salaried employees, and we have piece worker employees. Everybody agree with that? Would you agree that any one of those 4 types can have these 3 exceptions? Because they all have first names, they all have last names, they all have social security numbers. All right? The next 2 that we write will be specific to hourly employees. Remember, hourly employees have hours worked and hourly rate. All right? So we can call this whatever we want. We could make one for missing, but it's probably not going to happen. Okay? That they're going to have missing numeric fields. We'll get into why when we start to run this thing and you can see everything in total. So I'm going to, again, right mouse click on source, choose new, choose Java class, and instead of missing, I'm going to call this one out of range hours worked exception. All right? And there it is, if you had a hard time following me there. Again, if you don't like my names, you can come up with your own. In the past, when I used to do this with people, I'd use abbreviations so they didn't have to type so much. But if you get an exception that says OORHWE, that can be pretty confusing. or OOR HW exception. That can be pretty confusing. That's why I decided that even though it's more typing, to do it like this. Now, what I'm going to write in here, then there's a method as always to my madness. I'm going to say hours worked, kind of like we did before, but I'm going to say must be between, and I'm not going to hard code values in here. I'm going to say plus, and I'm going to put in my, all right, don't worry, we're going to fix that in a minute. All right. I want one of you to tell me why those are red. Yes. Nope. The other one. We did not implement iPayroll or iPayroll06. So it doesn't know those exist. So after extends exception, we have to put in implements iPayroll06, or if you just called yours iPayroll, put in that. So here's an example when we're using, we are creating our own exception. Our own exception is extending a Java class, and it's implementing our own interface. All right? The next one's going to look exactly like this. Instead of saying hours worked, it's going to say hourly rate. So I'm going to create the out of range hourly rate exception. Okay? Same way I've been doing all of these. And this one will also have to implement the iPayroll or iPayroll06. Public. Oh my goodness. Put your hand on the right keys. Public. All right, and then that's that one. Now, I'm going to ask a question, and you could give me an answer, or you could give me a smart aleck answer. All right? I'd rather have the regular answer, not the smart aleck answer. All right? Why did we use min rate and max rate in there? Yes. The smart aleck answer is because, well, we created min rate and max rate. No. But as John said, if in the future we change the minimum rate or we change the maximum rate, all we have to do is change our interface file and recompile. All right? So we now have done our general ones for basically like the payroll class, those being the first name, last name, and social security number, and now we added the two for our hourly employees. All right, the out of range hours worked and the out of range hourly rate. All right, the order in which we do these isn't going to matter. All right, and if we discovered later, oh, we forgot one of the ones for hourly, you can just go back and add it. It doesn't really matter. But just because I have them in this order in my handout, let's do the piece worker next. So again, right mouse click on your source folder, new, Java class, and I'm going to call this out of range And how do we do this? Now we can start saying, okay, do we want to be really specific here? Notice here we call this out of range hourly rate and out of range hours worked. Everybody see that? Right? It's got hourly in it, so I would think people would know that would apply towards hourly workers. They might not. All right? But in here, my name's a little bigger because I actually said that this was for piece workers. All right, so I said here, piece worker, number of pieces exception. That's really long. All right, I'm sure there are a lot of people who know a lot more about this language than I do that would say that's too long. You don't want to do something like that. And maybe they're right. Oops, no, that's not right. Okay. And as you'd probably guess, the next one then is going to be out of range piece worker price per piece exception. All right. If you're a faster typist and you want to get started on that or whatever, fine. But we'll put that one up in just a second. Again, I'm trying to get across to you, we are writing our own exceptions. All right. So if we go in as an example, okay, if we go in and the number of pieces, I think we're like between 0 and 100. It was something like that. Doesn't matter. But let's say that it is. So let's say this is 0 and this is 100. All right, everybody with me? So min NOP, we're just going to pretend is 0 if it's not. And max NOP, we're going to say 100. If I put a number in there, and the number that I put in there is 1,000, it's going to catch this exception. Does that make sense? However, if I put in there Ralph, it's going to give me a different exception. It's going to give me a Java exception, a number format exception. Because when I try to parse that, it's going to try to take the string and parse it. It won't be able to. All right? So we could end up putting a lot of different catch statements in, is what I'm trying to get across to you. All right? So the next one will be our out-of-range piece worker price per piece. See, it depends on how you're going to do exception handling and how far you're going to drill down, okay? Now, because I want to answer your question, but a lot of times it depends on where you're getting your data from. If you're getting your data from data entry people who have been doing this stuff for years, it'll be minimal. If you're setting it up where you're letting any end user do it, well, They can break it if you don't. If you're not accounting for it, your program will break. Does that answer your question? Okay. And I mean, it's just like and you know this, Christian, because it sounds like you're a gamer. It's like if you've got a condition in a game and you haven't accounted for it, what's going to happen? Well, in the worst case, the program is going to crash, right? And you don't want to be known for that. In just the same way, if you're going to create an app for somebody, and if it's a payroll app, you want to make sure it's always handled. So. And I like to be consistent, so I'm going to go back to the previous one. I am going to grab this one, and I'm going to put it in here. I'm going to change it, of course, but I want to make sure that the verbiage I used, so I'm going to change this to price per piece. Must be between minimum, I think it was PPP, and max PPP. I was always taught, but I had a teacher who was really a stickler on stuff like this, where if you didn't put the same kind of thing in for each one, the same kind of message, he would take off. Now, is that being a little bit too much? I don't know. All right. Now, I do want to mention something. I'm not going to do this, but let's pretend, look on the screen if you would, that thing that's in blue, let's just assume I wasn't paying attention, and instead of outer range piece worker price per piece exception, all right, I used out of range price per piece exception. I didn't put piece worker in there. Are you with me? Okay. I could go back and I could right mouse click on here, but what I want to show you is I can refactor rename. Okay? You can do that with virtually anything. So if you spelled something incorrectly in a program that you put in, you can always go back and refactor it. Now, that said, if you go back and you rename it, you'll typically get a dialog box that comes up and says, do you want to change all occurrences? And it's yes or no type of thing. And what you really want is a hell yes. Okay, because you do. You don't want to let those things get out of whack where some of them were changed and not all of them. All right, there actually may be a reason. With some editors, they let you look. If you say, let me choose, they'll go to every single one and they'll have you manually choose. All right, it's kind of like when you do a search and replace in Word. It's sort of the same type of an idea. All right. But again, one big thing I just do want to mention that is I want to make sure that you all get it, and that is you always want to make sure that you're consistent more than anything else. All right, so there's my piece worker, there's my piece worker. Commission, selling. Okay. We've got 3 more to write. So for the next one, as always, boy, I can't even see this anymore, so right mouse click on source, new, Java class. This one will be out of range commission rate exception. Okay. And it'll pretty much again be what you think. In other words, it will extend, as all of them must, exception, and it will implements iPayroll All right. What do we say for this last one? Okay. Commission worker rate must be between, and I don't remember what we call these. I think it was min C rate and max C rate. And the next one we write will look almost just like this, but instead of commission rate, it's going to say out of range commission sales exception. And instead of using the min C rate and the max C rate, we're going to use min C sales or whatever we call that one. And we have one more to go after that. And the only other thing I want to say is, do you notice how I'm doing this? Extends exception, implements iPayroll. Everybody see this? I can put this all on one line. In fact, I could put all three of these things on one line. All right? But one of the things that I'm doing is I want you to do it the way you want to do it. But what I do want you to understand is anything that you create, whether it's something we did as a class or whether it's something you do on your own. Again, you don't have to look, but please listen to this. All right? What you are doing, and hopefully this makes sense, is you're establishing your brand. All right? I told you guys about that job at the Centerpoint Hospital that with that Mr. Calicut who came in here about a month ago. He contacted me this morning and he said that he's gotten 2 or 3 resumes and I've given him some other people that he might want to contact. The point is, those people have links or somehow are providing code samples. You never know when somebody looks at your code what they're looking for. I don't know if you agree with that or not, but you really don't. But I have worked with people, they don't even care that much about your logic. They care about how stuff is laid out. Does it make sense? Other people could care less how it's laid out, but they nitpick on logic. What you got to try to do without knowing who's looking at your code is to try to satisfy everybody. The best thing that you can do that is to be consistent. However you set anything up, do it that way all the time. And I used to disagree with what I'm about to tell you, but even a bad standard is better than no standard at all. I used to not think that way. But at least if you've got a standard, even if it's bad, you're consistent with it. All right? So if other people end up maintaining your code, they know where to look for certain things because of the way you code. All right? I don't know if that makes sense, but it can be really important. All right? Oh, geez. Sorry. I guess this one I just called min sales, which wasn't good. Again, I should be consistent. If I called one min C rate and max C rate, I really should have called the other one min C sales and max C sales. All right? I can change it. I'm just going to leave it the way it is. All right? And we've now got 3 of them done. 3 of the types of employees. The good news is the only one that's left are salaried employees, and there's only one we have to write for them. All right? Which is basically going to be that their salary is out of range. All right? So I call this one out of range salaried exception. Okay? Again, maybe that's not a great name. Did you notice when you look right here? I'm going to remove this for a second. I'm going to put it right back. But if I say public and I say out, it's already put them in some kind of an order. All right, you might say that's not totally, it doesn't matter. It's the order the editors use it. Bless you. It doesn't matter what order we want. All I'm saying is when you look at that, just be careful if you're the kind of person, and I do more than my share of it. I know it's going to be for a salaried employee. So there it is. So I'm just going to double click. Just, as always, make sure you choose the right one. That's all I can say. Yes. Okay. Did you hear that? I didn't even know that. Did everybody hear what Christian just said? Look, if we type in OORSEU, that's it. And hit tab. See that? I didn't know that. All right. I guess if nothing else, and thank you, what that does is it does show you too. You shouldn't use the same one twice, but even if you did, it'll probably show you both of them. So you've narrowed it down. But and again, I do appreciate that. But the other thing I was trying to show you there is we've got about 11 exceptions. One thing we have not done a good job of, and I have not even talked with you about it yet, are the use of Java packages. And a package is like a folder, because we're putting everything more or less under the root. That's not a really good idea. We're going to fix that, not right now, but we're going to fix that when we get in and start talking about Android. All right? Okay. What did we say here? Okay. And the last thing I want to say about this, if you would all just for a second, I'll go right back to this, but I want to go back to this file here. Remember this one? This is where we defined all those. Again, come up with a standard. It probably would have been good if everything in here had the word sales in it. I probably should have said sales rate here, here, and here. Or since this is actually commission, maybe min commission, max commission, def commission, min commission rate, etc., or COMM. Now I could go back and refactor that. We could. I'm going to leave it the way it is. It is what it is. All right, but again, don't think for a second here that a potential employer might not look at that and say, or even ask you, Abby, why weren't you consistent when you did this? All right, you never know what kind of thing you'll be asked at an interview. And I'll be honest with you here, come up with an answer, be quick on your feet, but don't say, we did it as a class and that's the way the instructor did it. Because right away, what that does to me as an employer is it say, well, you didn't write it. Doesn't matter, because in some ways, at least, we are doing it together. The best way to teach you something is to have you do it. And that's what I'm trying to do here. All right, so we have all these. We've got all of these exceptions, and you can see them right there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, at least 10 of them. Thought there were 11, but maybe I don't think I'm missing anything. All right, but again, you get the idea. We've got 3 things that could be missing, and about 6 or 7 things that could be out of range. All right, it is 3:37. I was going to go on. I'm not going to. Why? Because I want you to understand this stuff. And if I just keep pouring it on you like this, and you're that tired, it's just going to go right over your head. You'll be typing, but you won't be, grasping anything. Okay? So, if I'm going to send you these articles, like I said, the ones I told you, the how to specify and handle exceptions. Okay, I'm going to do that, and this exception handling thing. I'm going to send that out to you right now. But if you finished, if you're all caught up, and you keyed in, you made your changes to your files, and now everything's running correctly, great. All right, if you haven't, you've got time until 4:25. If you have, there's a lot of things that you can do now. One thing that you might want to do is you might want to start looking through the Android stuff. It's not going to be very long. Tomorrow is the last class period. I plan on lecturing on Java. All right? If it does turn out that tomorrow, we fall a little behind, we have to move the test to Tuesday, then we do. But by no later than Wednesday, and hopefully before that. I want us to have at least 2 Java Android apps written by next Friday. At least. And we might have 3. All right? If anything, that's when I want to bury you. I want to just keep giving you stuff and giving you stuff and giving you stuff. Why? Because eventually you're creating your own app. And if I show you everything you can put in it, then you can start saying, okay, now that'd be cool in what I want to do. That I don't need, etc. But this is the time for you to start thinking, what do you want to do? All right? You might say, well, I don't know anything about Android. You don't have to. The other thing too, and again, not a joke. Don't make yourself an Android app in a few months that's called This Solves World Hunger, because it's not going to. All right? This will make you $1 billion. No, it won't. Whatever it is you're working on, start to think about scale. And also remember, we talked about this before, you can put a free one out there that does X, Y, and Z. But if they want everything that goes from A to V, all the other stuff, that they got to pay for. All right? What I'm shooting for is I want each one of you, the app that you put out there on the App Store, to be free. I don't want it to be a paid-for app. You can make changes to it later, or you can put out a free one and a paid one, but I want it to be free. And one of the main reasons that I want it to be free is if it is syntactically correct and you fill out the paperwork electronically, which we'll do as a class, all right, almost always Android accepts it. That's why. But they make you jump through more hoops if it's going to be paid. All right? And I want all of yours to be accepted. I think, maybe I'm wrong, but I think it's cool. We're going to potentially have a half dozen employers in here on that last day. And I would love it if every one of you, when you're showing your Android app, goes out to the App Store to load it. All right? Because what you've shown then is, hey, I've got an app that's out on the App Store. It may not seem like it's that much to you, but it very well could seem like something to a potential employer. All right, that's the end of my sermon. So again, just start looking at this stuff, and if you say, okay, I get what you're saying, but I don't even have a frickin' clue as to where to start. All right, again, I can email you this too, but there's what I'm about to show you. There's plenty of them out there. All right, I found this thing a week or two ago. Come on, and I can't remember the exact name, but it was something like 20 apps. Here it is. It's called 21, and I'll send you this too. 21 mobile app ideas for 2020. Steal them before anyone else does. This is just, this author came up with different things. Now you might look at those and go, there's not a damn thing in here that I'd be interested in. Okay, but maybe it'll help you think about something else. All right? Because if right now, this is the time for you to start thinking about, okay, he says I got to create my own Android app. Regardless of how simple or how complex it is, what do I want to do it on? And if Christian does, I remember when you came in here, you asked about gaming and stuff. And if you do have an idea for a game, again, I don't think you can build Fortnite, but maybe you can, okay? But the point is, if you've got a game, even if it's fairly simplistic, that's what you should be doing. I've had 2 or 3 people build games. I had the snake game, I had blackjack, all right, and I've had a few other ones that people have just made on their own. Things were like almost like a guessing game type of thing, not like we did guessing game, but other stuff. That's fine, all right? And what you're going to have to eventually present to me is what your idea is. And you're writing the requirements. You're taking this thing from from conception to delivery, so to speak. All right? Okay. So like I said, I'll send you all 3 of these right now.